agenda, I think that the Democrats should play the same game. So go California. Let's see. What else do we have in current events? Your president is at it again. So now it's Nigeria. So in full confession, in order for me to find any kind of like Trump stories or stories on this administration, I really have to go research because I'm not on X. I'm definitely not on True Social. I'm not really active on those platforms in that way because I stand on my conviction, and when I boycott something, I do my best to stay there. And so I left Twitter. I don't know. As soon as Elon Musk acquired Twitter, I left and I never went back. So, but apparently he did a tweet on X that says now Christians are being killed in Nigeria. We have to protect the Christians. Y'all, please don't fall for this. Please, this is very much, this is, we don't want to talk about Epstein. Don't look at what we're doing in Israel. Never mind the people we blowing up, the ships we're blowing up that we don't know or confirm, drug smugglers. Don't look at none of that. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. He's saying that Christians are being killed in Nigeria by the thousands and thousands. And, what he's really trying to do is get you to hate Islam. There's a lot of reasons for that. And I'm pretty sure that he will amp up that rhetoric with Zoran having won that mayoral race in New York City. And so you're going to see a lot of this anti-Muslim stuff coming from him. But it's really interesting, the timing of it all. Anytime that man does anything, I almost never look at the thing that he's actually doing. I'm looking behind the thing. Because you're doing this because he's very much a look over here, look what I'm doing. So you can't see the inner workings and the mass destruction that's happening behind the scenes. So he's at it again. But probably the most destructive part of that is your girl, Nicki Minaj, liked the sentiment. But this is interesting. This is very interesting. And I do realize that she does a lot for, she does a lot, period. I don't know what for. She just does a lot. And I thought this was an interesting move. And she also, I think this week too, praised Donald Trump for, I think that they used her music in maybe a TikTok video or something like that. And she shouted him out for that as well. I really bring that up to say that we need to be looking at everybody in the community. And we need to be looking at how everybody's moving. And we need to be taking note of how everybody's moving in what is going to ultimately be some kind of revolution. We need to know exactly who's on either side of us. And so, yeah, thought you should know that. Moving right along, Sean Grayson, the cop that shot Sonia Massey, was found guilty, y'all. Isn't that something? He was found guilty on second-degree murder charges, which is good because a lot of times in these cases, if they get found guilty at all, they get found guilty on manslaughter charges, which is, oops, I made a mistake. But the second-degree murder charges says, no, it was intentional. While it's not murder in the first degree, which means that you went there specifically to kill her, you intentionally killed her. And so he was found guilty a couple of days ago. And we appreciate that because it does not happen often. So, we always got to wait and see what the sentencing, we always have to wait and see what the sentencing is. But the fact that he was found guilty is a step in the right direction. Let's see. What else do we have in current events? Oh, in worthy white women news, Mackenzie Scott, who I do believe is a worthy white woman. She has donated, I think, another 50 something $million to Spelman College. And she has been on this consistent trend of donating to HBCUs. She's donated something like over $900 million to HBCUs. And we appreciate that. We like a good allyship. We appreciate high quality whites who are willing to stand on what they believe and put their money and their voices behind what they believe and behind what's right. And we appreciate Mackenzie Scott for all of her contributions to the cause. Okay, so all of y'all on LinkedIn, one of the things that I do, one of the things that I do or not do, have done, like recently in the last over the year stuff, I've really stopped. Like, I saw this social media trend, this new wave of communication that we're in. At a point a few years ago, I started to see where this was going to get sticky. So I stopped posting a lot. But now that we see that all of these platforms, their main goal is to obtain our information. LinkedIn is no better. So while you're on there, looking for work, they are going to be utilizing your data to train AI. So, and this leads me to another conversation that we'll come back to, because I actually started this episode with current events. And, I usually start with culture. But today, because of the election, I started with current events, but we're going back to culture in a minute. But in the end, when we get to the anti-capitalism, we are coming back to AI, because AI isn't all it's cracked up to be, y'all. And we have to understand the bigger picture of what's going on in reference to AI. But let me see if I have any other current event notes. I think that's all we have for current events. Shall we move on to culture? I love that for some reason. Okay, in culture news. Oh, you know what? Before I go any further, I want to wish a belated happy birthday to Colin Kaepernick. Happy belated birthday, Colin. Every time I think about the Colin Kaepernick situation, I just feel like he sacrificed his career at a time where niggas could have stood up for him. Like, right. So when I think about the NFL, right? The NFL is 53% black, right? 53% of the players are black. That's more than half the league. Why is it that when he was taking a stance that honestly benefited all black men, why they couldn't stand with him? Like, in solidarity, if the 53% of the NFL players that are black said, we don't take the field unless Cap takes the field, what would they have done? Fired everybody? Like, I just feel like even though we are the majority and we have some leverage, the mentality that says that white supremacy will win out anyway, which keeps us from acting and makes people afraid to act, is ultimately going to be the death of us, because I feel like we missed a moment at that time when Colin was taking a knee. And I feel like the 53% should have took a knee. Not only should they have taken a knee, but they should have said, unless Kaepernick plays, none of us plays. I think that we have to realize when we do have leverage and not be afraid to utilize it. And you can only act in those ways when you are not thinking about self. And I think that at the time, if if there was a collective thought and this would have been a collective move, then I think we could have, I think they could have gotten some headway out of that kind of movement. But no, then there are the Jay-Z's of the world who would undermine that entire plight, added nothing to the cause, in my opinion. His relationship with the NFL, okay, what is he, like, supervisor of the acts or whatever his position is, whatever that role is so minuscule in comparison to the progress that could have been made had everybody stood together, and he used his influence to stand behind that as opposed to sacrifice Cap. Yeah. Anyway, so happy belated birthday, Colin Kaepernick. I hope that you had an amazing day, and I trust that God is doing amazing things in your life. Our next story, oh my God, it saddens me. Imi Cole, a black beauty brand, founded by a sister. I do not want to mispronounce her name, so I'm not even going to attempt it. You can see it over here to my right. Her beauty brand closed in July of 2025. Oh boy, I don't want to talk about these people, I swear. However, I am. She founded a beauty company made for black women. And because it's so difficult for black businesses to stay afloat, because we do not have the access to capital as our counterparts, it's much harder for our businesses to thrive and to scale. And so unfortunately, her business closed in July of 2025. And I recently read that she is now going to be the head of the makeup or beauty division at Skims. My problem with this, while I absolutely appreciate Kim for re-employing her and giving her an opportunity, Skims is a multi-million dollar business, we know. But at the same time, I cannot help but feeling like, God, every opportunity that these people get to exploit the culture, they do. And this, in hiring her, I feel like is more of, for me, outwardly, it looks more like partnering with somebody black to gain more social black equity and to position your business to qualify for things that you essentially need a certain percentage of minorities to qualify for. It doesn't really give for me. I wanted to help this sister's business because she could have invested in her business, right? That was an option. Instead of employing her, she had already built a brand. She could have took her under her wing and provided the tutelage that would have helped her to scale her business. She could have introduced her to people to help her scale her business. She could have done a lot of things, but she employed her. And while I'm not going to knock anybody for getting a job, especially at this point where we are, I know how difficult it is to be an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I've been one for over a decade. I know the grind. I also know the point in which you are living this dream and the money's not coming in. And guess what? When you go to pay your phone bill, pay your light bill, those people are not asking you what's your dreams. They asking for money. And so if your dreams are not making any money, then sometimes we get to points where we have to make hard decisions. And so I'm not knocking the sister for making the decision to go work for Skims. What I'm questioning is the motivation behind Skims, aka Kim, hiring her as opposed to investing in her business. I think that it would have been better for the sister had Kim invested in her business and did some kind of partnership in her business that would have helped her business and could have kept her dream alive. That has become my problem with the Kardashian family. It feels like to me they take every opportunity to gut the culture. And I'm sorry. I mean, that's how I see it. That's how I see it. That's how it has been playing out for me as of late. And you know, I think that's our fault though. I think that we are as black people, we are so loving, so kind, so welcoming. Come on, come over, come to the cookout, be a part. We love everybody. And I think that we do that to our own detriment. That's all. Y'all, so last night I watched The Perfect Neighbor. Oh my goodness. I was in tears. Number one, I love the way it was shot. It was shot exclusively, really utilizing exclusive body cam footage from the police officers. That's how the story was narrated. That's how the story was told. The facts just told themselves. And I can't imagine living in a space where, but for this one person, we would all be living in peace. And that woman, her name was Susan Lawrence, she was miserable. And she kept complaining about kids being kids. And ultimately, it cost A.J. Owens her life. And I was upset when I got to the end of when you get, well, without giving it away. But I think by now it's national news. So we all know by now. Eventually, she does get arrested. She did subsequently get charged with manslaughter. However, she also did get 25 years, which again, another win, because a lot of times the people that commit these murders against black bodies do not get charged, and she did. So it's The Perfect Neighbor. It's on Netflix. I would give that a watch. It was very good. It was very good. I enjoyed it. So in more fucked up administration news, so two federal court judges said to the administration, reinstate these SNAP benefits, reinstate the funding for these SNAP benefits. And they are supposed to be doing so 50%, which I guess it means that everybody will get 50% of their benefits. However, the administration has come out and said that, yeah, you'll get them, but we don't know when. This is food, y'all. This is food. In response to that, this sister in Atlanta, Georgia, Jasmine Crow Houston, who has a startup waste management tech company, is doing an amazing thing, y'all. And she is donating food for people on SNAP. I have her information in the bio. Please do consider donating to her cause. She is meeting this moment with movement, and we need that because community is key to fighting fascists. So her name is, again, Jasmine Crow Houston, and she has founded a startup tech waste management company in Atlanta, Georgia. And she is taking donations for feeding the families. The families impacted by the rescinding of the SNAP benefits in Atlanta, Georgia. So we want to support these kind of causes. Again, I will put her information in the description of this video. I'm also probably going to put it someplace on this video because I often forget to put it in the description. I think, y'all, mutual aid is going to be really important in these times. We have to figure out how to reestablish community. I know we've been on this individual grind and everybody's trying to get theirs, but I think that the mandate now is collective actions and mutual aid and doing things for one another and being a vessel for one another to get through these times. So support what she's doing. What she's doing is great. Again, the company is Gooder Company, and I will remember to put the information in the bio. Van Jones. You know, some of us really, I feel like, go out of our way to be anti-Black. And you can say what you want. I think how, you know what? Let me not start there, because there was a point where I felt like where Van Jones was doing the good work. Right? I appreciated the work that he was doing in criminal justice reform. I appreciated the whole plight. You know, he was very instrumental again in Kim Kardashian maneuvering her way into criminal justice reform and the work that she's been doing, which, you know, hats off to her. You can't take that from her. So I appreciated what he started out doing with regards to criminal justice reform. And on the face, it looked like he was doing good work. And I'm sure he's done some good work. But he is looking questionable as hell. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, he's not even looking questionable at this point. Bro, you walking around with that yellow ribbon on, that Israel button you're wearing is atrocious. You walking around with this Zionist tag, essentially saying I'm bought and paid for, is disgusting. Aligning with Israel in a way that so outwardly and boldly and with your chest says you support a genocide, bro, you look crazy. You look crazy. The ribbon is a lot. Like the ribbon, bro. The ribbon. Come on. Come on. I mean, I know they paid you. I know they paid you. I know you're getting a lot of money from these people, but I promise you, this is not going to read well in the future. Like, you are so far from where you should be as a Black man, because the position that you're taking in this alliance with Israel, who not only are they committing a genocide, but the core foundational beliefs of these people, specifically this sector of people, and the Zionist Jewish people that think that Israel is the only place that is supposed to exist, which is, I mean, again, I said to y'all on my last podcast, I am down the rabbit hole in just learning more, reading more, watching more, understanding more about geopolitical issues. And this issue between Israel and Palestine is a deep one, but it's not as complex as people would have it to be. And from my research and from what I'm reading and my understanding of this, the Palestinians are Jews. They are the original Jews. They, as a matter of fact, when that land was created by Britain, it after the Holocaust, it was for the Palestinians. And settlers, people from everywhere, established Israel. Is not the It's not Israel of the Bible, y'all. This is Israel 2.0. This is, the Israel everybody made and jumped in line with this ideology that they are the chosen people, when that's not true. And I'll just leave it there. That's not true. And the extinguishment of the Palestinian people in Gaza and what they have been allowed to do on national TV in broad daylight under the cameras is an atrocity. And the fact that our tax dollars is paying for it, not for nothing, is why Kamala Harris lost the election. I know I know they are remixing the narrative, but all accounts says that the single issue she lost on was Gaza. So back to Van Jones, who, why you're choosing this hill, I don't know, but it must have a huge dollar sign behind it. You should be ashamed of yourself, because how you talk about or pretend as if you are doing the work of Black people, but be in line with an ideology that essentially extinguishes other people of color in another country, how those two things can exist at the same time, I don't know. But you look wild. And more all skin folk and kinfolk news. You know what? Let me say this. There is absolutely 99.9% of the time I disagree with Candace Owens. This Israel evolution, and she has admitted to evolving. She's getting this part right. Wrong on everything else. I mean, wrong. Honestly, I think Candace Owens is anti-Black, if I'm being honest with you. I think she's anti-Black. I think a lot of her ideologies is anti-Black. I think it hurts Black people. I think it hurts the Black cause. I think it pushes a false narrative about Black people. And I think she has her own reasons for doing that. I think that she built, she built the platform hating herself, hating her people, and doing and saying things that hate and hurt her people. And now that she see that those people just think that she's one of us, and she's seeing that in real time, she is rethinking a lot of things. But her position on Israel is correct. And she did a really good interview with Norman Finkelstein, which I would encourage you to watch, because Norm really breaks down the Palestine-Israel conversation in a way that's digestible and simple. And she does a really good job in just allowing him to flow. And so I encourage you to watch the interview. I watched it. It was good. Moving right along. Where are we, y'all? Okay, so we're moving to the last segment, and we're talking anti-capitalism. because capitalism is killing us all, right? So remember earlier in the pod, I talked a little bit about AI, and I said we was coming back to it. Well, we're back to it, and now I'm going to talk about why AI, y'all, is not, it's not what we think AI is. As with all technology, it advances society, right? However, the goal in the use of AI is complex. It's not all good. And there is a very intentional plight to literally dumb us down as Americans. And this happens with technology naturally, right? Organically. If you think about the cell phone, how many numbers do you know by heart? How many numbers? How many phone numbers do you know by heart? By heart, I know my husband's number. By heart. I don't know any other numbers by heart because we're so reliant on this technology that now we're not even using our brain in a way that help us to remember, in a way that help us to process information the way information was intended to be processed. AI is that on steroids. Now, don't get me wrong. As with all technology, it has its place. But this grand plan of the millionaires and the billionaires with how they are attempting to utilize AI, we have to take a couple of things into consideration. The first thing we need to take into consideration is AI is biased on its face, y'all. It's biased. It's created by data that is put in place by humans. Somebody has to program the machine. So it's going to have its flaws and it's going to have its biases like everything else, right? AI feeds into the system of capitalism in this way. The goal of capitalism has a couple of different tenets, and in order for it to work, a couple of things have to happen. Number one of the first rules of capitalism is to cut your labor costs, right? AKA fuck over your workers. Number two, make as much profit as possible so that you can distribute it to your shareholders by dividends and you know, profits. And number three, automate everything you can, eliminate as many humans as you can, put this system in automation so that you can get double the output for less the labor costs, right? And then the profit from that gets divided between the millionaires and the billionaires. Meanwhile, people are separated from jobs. People without jobs lose their homes. People lose their homes. They end up in the street. People who don't have means of financial security end up doing things in desperation. That leads to higher incarceration, which feeds the free labor market. And this which then goes to the profit of private prisons. Like this is a system, y'all. This is a system. And the goal of this system is to make more money, is to make more money, is to make more money. And with that wealth being so concentrated between a very small population, a very small population, with the majority of everyone else being victims of that system, it makes the system faulty. And that's why capitalism is not good, y'all. AI, which y'all don't know the amount of water you need for these servers. If you live in an area where those big servers are going up, I would start going to your community meetings. I would start going to your town halls. I would start being involved locally to see what's going on in your community. With all of this AI, and they want us to become more reliant on systems and less reliant on our own mind, our own eyes, our own intellect. They want us to be dependent upon artificial intelligence. They don't want us to be intelligent. Connect that to taking the books out of the libraries. Connect that to their assault on higher education. Connect that to, like, all of this is tied together, y'all. All of this is tied together. So when you're thinking about AI, I have never used AI for anything. I see people, they're using AI to shop. They're using AI to tell them what to say in relationships. Like, they're just going AI crazy. And all this does is minimizes your humanity, and it minimizes the need for humanity. That's all it does. While, I mean, they're with great intention, there are great uses for AI. They're great uses. But when you're talking about people making money and profits being the priority, there are no good intentions with this, y'all. So be careful with the AI. Understand what you're giving up when you're using these platforms. If you notice, even Meta has come back and said, "Oh, they send you a link to a 25,000 page article that says that they're using their data differently." All those words are saying we are going to be utilizing your digital footprint for the development of our artificial intelligence. And so you want to be careful with how much y'all putting online, what you're putting online. Start combing through your social media feeds and platforms and start pulling and shredding your digital footprint is what I would do. Is what I've been doing it for years. I hardly post anything. I'm not active I'm active more now, but I'm not active in a way that I am online. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm not doing all of that. I'm very skeptical of the millionaire, billionaire class in what their ultimate plan is. I have watched so much content, y'all. I have watched so much content with regards to the goal of these people. I'm not even going to get into it, but be careful, y'all. This is not, this is way deeper than you think. So I encourage you to ask questions. I encourage you to start to do your research as I have started to do mine. And I encourage you to look at this whole AI movement with much skepticism. Okay? The last thing I'm going to say in respects to AI is this, y'all. We do not want to be a surveillance state. Let me just share with you a little bit of what that looks like. It looks like the erosion of our privacy, the erosion of consent, with all this massive amount of data collection and analysis without our consent. We don't know how they're using our personal information. It creates a space where there will be no anonymity and no autonomy. Essentially, we won't be in control of our own selves, y'all. this this is going to greatly impact our civil liberties. We're talking about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the right to assemble peacefully, the right to dissent. We're not going to have any choice but to start to self-censor, simply because of the civil liberties that we are used to having, that all of a sudden we're not going to have. Y'all, a surveillance state is not what we want. We are living in a time where we are watching this country go from a democracy to an authoritarian state. Y'all, this is not what we want. This is not what we want. I promise you. So we have to fight against fascism. And we have to do that in every way, shape, and form that we can. And for right now, I think that means that you have to get active locally. You have to find resistance measures in your own community and connect with those resistance measures. And we have to start to organize with people who are in and around us doing the work. We have to come offline, because if we're going to fight fascism, I mean, we can't be laying out the playbook on Facebook. So living in some really serious and scary times, y'all. And so I just want us to be aware of what's happening and keep our heads on a swivel. Keep our eyes open. Keep our ears open. And begin to digest information that we haven't ordinarily digested, and start to really look at what's going on politically, so that we have the tools to respond. So with that, that brings us to today's segment of Black Facts. And in today's segment, we are highlighting our good auntie, Miss Shirley Anita Chisholm, who on this day, November the 5th, 1968, was the first person to be elected to the House of Representatives. She was the first woman of color to be elected to the House of Representatives, where she served as New York's 12th District Representative for 15 years. Ms. Chisholm went on to do many things, and her efforts were concentrated around education and improving living conditions for Black people. She had an unsuccessful run for the presidency. However, she was also the first person of color to run for the presidential Democratic nomination. Ms. Chisholm was a member of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She was a pioneer and a leader. She was a Black woman. She retired from Congress after 15 years of service, and she left this world in 2005. And we stand on her shoulders, and we stand on the many shoulders of those who came before us. Now, this is not an ad. However, I get my Black Facts from the Heritage app, and the Heritage app is a free app that I encourage you all to download and support. It is free. The Heritage app provides Black Facts for every single day of the year. It doesn't cost you anything, and we need to support platforms that are trying to manage our information and disperse information around the Black existence, because as we know, it is under attack and it is actually under erasure. So download the Black Heritage app on your phone. In closing, so today's takeaway is this: as Black people, we're never going to always agree on anything. As people, we're never going to always agree on anything. However, I feel like it is imperative that at this moment, the time at which we find ourselves right now, we need to find community. We need unity in our community because there is a significant threat against our viability in this country. And we need to organize. We need to come together. We need to link with like minds. So, in closing, the takeaway is this, and it's a simple one. We need unity in our community. I encourage you to connect with someone with like mind. It's time to organize. It's time to do work that we've never done. So we need to be seeking guidance and leadership in this area. And we need to figure out how to best incorporate mutual aid so that we are being a community with one another and we are helping one another as much as we can. Because it's not only going to be hard for the least of us, collectively, it's going to be hard for the masses of us. I love you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. God willing, I'll see you next week. Good night.